back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I'm here today to film a really exciting TBR, and this is a TBR not for the month but actually for a readathon, and the readathon is a 2-week long readathon. It is being hosted by various different co-hosts, but it was originally thought up by Ashley, and her channel is Don't Have a Degree in Reading, so I'll link her channel and I'll link all the other co-hosts' channels down below as well. James Chatham's channel is where I originally saw it, but then I did see it on a couple of other people who I'm already subscribed to, and of course I've gone and since subscribed to the other people who I wasn't subscribed to. So you should definitely go and check out all of their channels. They all read fantasy and sci-fi and the things that we all love, so definitely go check them out. But I'm really excited about this readathon. In fact, it might be the most exciting readathon that I've come across for fantasy readers in a long time. So I wanted to do a TBR, I wanted to get involved, and in fact it was one of those times where I watched a YouTube video, and the moment I started watching it I got really excited. I started thinking about which books I could use for the challenges, and I think there's quite a lot of challenges actually, so I'm really keen to get my teeth stuck into some of these books and to just read and enjoy them. I've managed to fulfill all the challenges with books off of my shelves, I think. I'm going to tell you about it, but this is called the One Readathon to Rule Them All. It is based obviously off of the quote from Lord of the Rings, but it is not a Lord of the Rings readathon. It is just a general fantasy and I suppose science fiction as well readathon, and it's pretty damn exciting. The dates that this readathon is happening is from the 29th of April through to the 12th of May, and I'm really keen to just get involved. 2 weeks is a good amount of time for some reading, although I have been overly ambitious, and there's also some challenges where I've chosen multiple books so I can see what mood I'm in at the time, I guess. But I'm really looking forward to this. So let's get into what the challenges are. So the first challenge on the list is to read a book which is by an author who is a person of colour. And if you're unsure about any ideas for any of the challenges, what you could be reading potentially, then the co-hosts and Ashley have put together a load of links to various blogs and spreadsheets and ideas of different things you can read for each of the challenges. So if you don't have any ideas, you might find that actually by looking through these lists you already own some of the books. I was able to make up the entire thing just out of what I already own. I haven't bought anything new for this, so I'm really excited to get into it. So first challenge is to read a book by an author of colour, and I have chosen this one, which I've had on my TBR for quite some time. This is The Broken Crown, the first one in the Sun Sword by Michelle West. And actually when I was looking through some of the links that the hosts provided, this one was on quite a few of them, so a lot of people seem to enjoy her stuff and say that it's good. And if you like fantasy, then she is a good author to try, so I already owned this. It says, Torleone, the heart of the Dominion of Anaga, where games of state are about to become a matter of life or death, and where those who seek to seize the crown will be forced to league with some treacherous, cunning ally. Torleone, ancestral seat of power, where Serra Diora Maria di Marino, that is a long name, the most sought-after beauty in the land, a woman betrayed by all she holds dear, may strike the first blow to change the future of a dominion and empire alike. And then we have the other land, which is Alvarlian Aramamelis. I am so not good at fantasy names, guys. These are complicated names. I think in my head when I read names like this, I just skim over them and I just shorten them to whatever sounds logical, and it's definitely never the same as what it actually is. And then when I come to review everything, I have to read back and make sure I've got the names right and not what I've imagined that they are for the entire book. In Alva Alan Aramarelis. See, that's not a catchy name. The most ancient of civilized cities, the home of an imperial court, it's long been the centre of magic, both dark and bright, and although the Empire won its last war with the Dominion and survived a devastating magic-fueled battle with a far deadlier foe, both these victories were not without their cost, and now the realm is on the brink of a far greater confrontation faced with an unholy alliance that could spell the end of freedom for mortal kind. So of course it sounds pretty epic and crazy. Dominion and Empire. Would she prove a helpless prize in their games of power, or the most cunning player of all? I'm gonna say and hope that she's the cunning player, because helpless prize doesn't really appeal. But cunning player, who's a lady and written by a person of colour, I'm definitely there for that. This is quite a chunky one. It is a mass market paperback though, and this one is, let's see how many pages, 764 pages, so it's a pretty big book. The type is really small. Hopefully I can get through at least some of it. I don't know how much I'm going to finish these books, but I'm definitely excited to give it a go. The next challenge is to read a book with a person of colour as the main character. So it doesn't have to be written by a person of colour, just has to have a main character who is not white. And this is one of the challenges where I have two options, so I'm going to sort of just decide on the day which one I am more in the mood for whenever I get to this challenge. So the first option I have is this one, An Unkindness of Ghosts by Rivers Solomon. I recently picked this one up and I've heard good things about it from a couple people who have been reading it recently. It's about a person called Asta who has little to offer the folks in space in the way of rebuttal when they call her ogre and freak. She's used to the names, she wishes there was more truth to them. If only she were truly a monster, she'd be powerful enough to tear down the walls around her until nothing remains. Asta lives in a low-deck slum of the HSS Matilda, a space vessel organised much like the antebellum South. For generations, Matilda has ferried the last of humanity to a mythical promised land. On the way, the ship leaders have imposed harsh moral restrictions and deep indignities on the dark-skinned sharecroppers like Asta. So as you can see, the main character is a person of colour. That's very clearly stated. Embroiled in a grudge with a brutal overseer, Asta learns there may be a way to improve her lot if she's willing to sow the seeds of civil war. So this is kind of a sci-fi trapped on a spaceship in space with a war brewing story, and I'm down for that. It's quite short actually compared to some of the other ones I've got. It's only 342 pages roughly, so let me know if you think this one is good. The other option that I have for this challenge in particular is this one, Fudoki by Kij Johnson. I have owned this book for years now, literally years, because I read Kij Johnson's short story collection, I think about 2 or 3 years ago. I can't quite remember, but I absolutely adored it, and of course, since I adored that, I picked this one up to go on and read it, and I just haven't had the time, haven't got round to it. So I definitely need to prioritise this, and this seems like a perfect opportunity. I believe this has a Japanese main character. This is set in the same universe as another book by the author. The other book is called The Fox Woman, and this follows Fudoki, which is a take on another animal totem, enters the world of the creature who comes to be known as the Kagaya Jaime, a sometime warrior woman, occasional philosopher, and reluctant confidant to noblemen, and who may or may not be a figment of the imagination of an aging empress who is embarking on the last journey of her life, setting aside the trappings of court life and reminiscing as she follows the paths that are leading her to the nunnery and death. Fudoki is a tale of a being who starts her journey on the kami, or spirit road, as a humble, if ever being such as a cat can be humble, small tortoiseshell feline. She has seen her family destroyed by fire that has decimated most of the imperial city, and this loss renders her tailless, the only one left alive to pass on such stories as Cat born the year the star fell, and the cat with a litter of 10, and the fire-tailed cat. Without her Fudoki, self and soul and home and shrine, she cannot keep the power of her clan together, and she cannot join another Fudoki because although she might be able to win a place within another clan, to do so would mean she would cease to be herself. So this really heavily draws on some of the Japanese mythology, and it sounds like it's going to be another story where it's beautifully written. I remember Kij Johnson had a beautiful writing style when I read her short stuff, so I hope that that does translate into her novels as well, and I'm definitely looking forward to reading this at some point. So again, let me know if you think this one is the one I should use for this challenge. I've just realised this video is going to be a long one because I'm getting really into this and I'm loving it so much, but that's good, so just sit back and relax, I guess. The next challenge is to read a fantasy book under 300 pages. Now I thought about using a novella for this because I do have quite a few novellas that would definitely fit this, but I decided I was going to put in a book that I've wanted to read for a while and I just needed a good excuse to get back to this series, and that is the next one in the Discworld series. So this one is Wyrd Sisters. It is, I believe, the 6th one in publication order, which is the order I am reading them in. So I've read the first 5 already quite a while ago that I finished the 5th one, but they don't necessarily go together. They're all set in the same universe. They follow various different characters on the back of a turtle that flies through space, and each of the characters is very very witty and silly and humorous in some sort of way. Terry Pratchett does an excellent job of kind of integrating social comedy and humour and commentary into his books with a lot of fantasy setting and funny moments, and he does a really, really good job of incorporating wit with everything. So I'm definitely keen to pick this one up and give it a try. I think this is the first one in the Witches series by him, because there's lots of mini series in the Discworld, and one of the ones that a lot of people really recommend is Death, another one is The Witches, so I'm definitely excited that I'm going to be starting the Witches series, so looking forward to giving this a go. And this one is 297 pages, so it just qualifies for this challenge of under 300 pages. The next challenge is to read a book that is written by a non-English speaker and has been translated into English and is still sci-fi or fantasy. So I have 3 options for this. One of them is one that I've already started, but I'm not that far into it because it's huge, and the other 2 I've not started, I'm just interested in. So I'm going to show you the one I've already started first, and that is this beast, The Grey House by Mariam Petrosyan. And this was translated by Yuri Machkasov, and I believe it was translated from Russian. The author is actually not Russian, she is Armenian, but she wrote the original in Russian, or it was originally published in Russian, so it was translated from Russian. And this is a really hard book to describe. It's a story about a house, a grey house, where there are all of these children who are living there, and each child has their own distinct story and background, but they all live communally together. There are different kind of tribes within the house, so certain groups of people will group and flood together and they will become kind of their own clique, and there are some people who are a bit more like an outsider to that group. Every child has a different conception of what the house is, and the house itself has its own personality. So this is 100% magical. I wouldn't even go so far as realism, I'd just say magical weirdism, because it is totally bizarre. It's very ethereal, it kind of gets in your mind a little bit. I'm actually reading this as I read a blog online, and there was a blog where a group of people did some really interesting discussion about this book. They did a buddy read and they commented on the blog as they were reading with their thoughts. So I'll link that blog down below if you are interested in picking this one up and doing that, reading along. But that's been so helpful. It's been basically invaluable whilst reading this book to uncover some of the things and the ideas. This author, I don't believe, has ever written anything else, and she doesn't plan to, because this was essentially her life's work. This was a world that she dreamed up and a vision that she dreamed up and that she got so obsessed with, and she had to get the story out. And then once it was done, she felt happy and satisfied that it was out there and it was done, and she didn't feel like there was ever a need for another one, or at least that's what she said. So I believe this is quite a comprehensive, long, big, old, epic, magical weirdism book, and I definitely am enjoying it at times, but I also find myself completely overwhelmed at times by it and just not knowing what on earth is going on. So I have been reading this really, really slowly for ages, but I think this readathon could give me the push to carry on with it and see where it goes, because I'm definitely not at the halfway point just yet. I'm a bit under the halfway point. There are also 2 other options I have for this challenge of translated fiction in SFF. So the other one I have is The Sands of Sarasvati, and this is by Risto Isamaki, translated by Owen F. Witzman. And this one is one that I picked up when I went to Worldcon, so I believe it's being translated from Finnish. And this one is one I don't know too much about. Indian scientists discover a vast stretch of underwater ruin in the west coast of India. Have they found Atlantis, the fabled sunken continent? Marine archaeologist Amaria Desai and Russian submarine expert Sergei Salvinikov investigate the underwater ruins and discover a mysterious field of human skulls and skeletons. Ooh, that sounds a bit ominous. It sounds like it's going to be kind of a commentary on environmental science fiction and fantasy, which is definitely something I'm kind of interested in, like cli-fi, I suppose you could call it. So I'm definitely intrigued. I've heard that a couple of people have read this author and thought that they were good, but I don't think I've heard too many reviews on it. So I'll be interested in what I think of this when I get to it. So That's one of the options. And then the other option I have is actually an anthology, and this was translated, all of the works in this were translated by Ken Liu, who is one of my favourite authors. This is called Invisible Planets, an anthology of contemporary Chinese SF in translation. So I believe there are quite a few different stories from various authors. 13 stories in the collection, 2 which are by Cixin Liu, who is one of the winners of a Hugo Award, and he wrote The Three-Body Problem, if you've heard of that. We also have a Hugo winning story, which is Folding Beijing by Hao Jingfang, and a lot of different diverse representation of Chinese SF in general. To round out the collection, there are several essays from Chinese scholars and authors. So some of the stories that we have included are by Chen Qifan, or Quifan, The Year of the Rat, The Fish of Lijiang, and The Flower of Shaizhou. Then we have Zia Jia, I'm probably saying all these names wrong, so I apologise in advance, 100 Ghosts Parade Tonight, Tong Tong Summer, and Night Journey of the Dragon Horse. And then we have Ma Boyong, The City of Silence, Hao Jingfang, Invisible Planets and Folding Beijing, Tang Fei, we have Cool Girl, which is one I've already read actually, so I'm definitely excited to see that. Cheng Jingbo, we have Grave of the Fireflies, and Lu Cixin, we have The Circle and Taking Care of God. And then we have the essays The Worst of All Possible Universes and The Best of All Possible Earths. We then have The Torn Generation, Chinese Science Fiction in a Culture in Translation, and finally, What Makes Chinese Science Fiction Chinese. So they all sound completely fascinating. I was gifted this, not the Christmas we've just had, the one before. I really should get to this. I absolutely love his fantasy and his short works, so I'm definitely keen to see which works Ken Liu has chosen to translate and been involved in the translation of, and I'm really looking forward to reading some more Chinese SF in general as well, so looking forward to that. The next challenge is to read a standalone fantasy, and I believe I only have 1 or 2 of these on my shelf. I actually own a lot of beginnings or middles of series, but not many standalone fantasies. I mean, they are harder to find, but yeah, I have found one on my shelf that I probably am overdue to read, and that is Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Chris Riddell, because this is the illustrated version, and as you can see, there are pictures throughout which are gorgeous, so I'm definitely keen to give this a go. I do find that from the Neil Gaiman books I've tried, I really enjoy his kids fiction and child fiction. I think that's great. I often really like them. I've also enjoyed his Sandman series, but I've found that I struggle a little bit with his older works, the ones that are aimed at adults. It says, under the streets of London lies a world most people could never dream of. When Richard Mayhew helps a mysterious girl he finds bleeding on the pavement, his boring life changes in an instant. Her name is Daw. She's on the run from 2 assassins in black suits, and she comes from the London below. His act of kindness leads him to a place filled with monsters and angels, a beast in a labyrinth, and an earl who holds court in a tube train. It is a strangely familiar, yet utterly bizarre story. Step down into London below and discover Neil Gaiman's extraordinary modern classic with breathtaking illustrations. So I'm keen to give it a go. I think this one is aimed more at the YA kind of age group, and so it might work for me more than his adult stuff, but he does a bit of a weird, bizarre kind of fantasy genre himself, so I'm looking forward to it. The next challenge is to read a book that is set in a non-European setting, so I again have 2 choices for this one. The first one is The Tiger's Daughter. This one is an ARC copy, so the title is on the spine. So I believe it follows an empire called the Hokoran Empire, and they have conquered every land which is currently within their reach. However, although they have conquered all the lands around them, they have failed to notice that in their own lands there is a festering evil. Their whole empire starts to crumble from within. Away from the city, we have the remains of the nomadic Quarin people, and we follow them as they protect themselves from the rest of the empire, and they've made a treaty with them to sort of protect themselves and keep themselves distant and apart. However, we then follow 2 different warriors trained in very different parts of the world, and we see them as they come together and they both have to somehow try and save the world from the brewing darkness that is about to spread all over it, presumably. I've heard very good things about this from a lot of people who've read it. I haven't really been too careful with listening to what they're saying. I just know people seem to like it because I don't like spoilers or any kind of idea about what I'm going into with fantasy, but this one does sound like it's my kind of thing. I really enjoy non-Western inspired settings and ideas when it comes to magic, so I'm hoping that I'll really like this when I get to it, and hopefully that might be this readathon. The other option I have for a non-European setting is The Killing Moon by N.K. Jemisin. I believe this one is kind of inspired by Egyptian culture, which is something quite different, and it says, in the ancient city-state, peace is the only law. Upon its rooftops and among the shadows of its cobbled streets wait the gatherers, keepers of the peace, priests of the dream goddess. Their duty is to harvest the magic of the sleeping mind and use it to heal, soothe, and kill those who are judged corrupt. But when a conspiracy blooms within the Gujarat's temple, the gatherer must question everything he knows. Someone or something is murdering innocent dreamers in the goddess's name, and Iru must now protect the woman he was sent to kill, or watch the city be devoured by war and forbidden magic. It sounds like it's going to be a pretty good read. I obviously love the Broken Earth series, which is by N.K. Jemisin. I think that's a great series, and this was a series that she wrote just before she wrote that series, I think. So I'm hopeful that I will really like this one too. I'll give it a go and I'll let you know, but it sounds pretty cool, and the fact that it has inspiration drawn from Egyptian culture just sounds really cool to me as well. The next challenge is to read a book that has LGBTQIA+ representation, and for that one I've chosen to continue on with a series I've already started that I know definitely has the LGBTQ+ representation, and that is this series, the Night Runner series, and this is book number 3, Traitor's Moon by Lynn Flewelling. I have read the first 2 a while back and I really enjoyed them. I think we read them at the very start of last year maybe, so it was quite a while ago, and it's about these 2 guys. One of them is very talented and breaks the other one out of jail, and then the other one kind of ends up getting involved with his escapades and following him around, and they become kind of a duo. For various reasons, they get embroiled in plots that are going on, and it turns out there's a lot more to them than meets the eye. And as the story goes on, you see them develop a relationship, especially in book number 2, not as much in book 1, it's more hinted at there, but it develops a lot in book number 2, and I'm assuming that the rest of the series it continues to develop. I think there are 6 books in the series. I own the first 3 in physical, and then I own the next few on audiobook, so I'm hopeful that if I enjoy and really like this one as much as I like the first 2, then I will obviously power through the rest of the series as well. But I really enjoyed the first 2. I think I gave both of them 4.5 or 4 out of 5 stars, so really high ratings, and it's just a good feel-good series with some excellent representation. So I'm definitely keen to get back to this series and give it a go. So that is all the challenges I have books for. The final challenge is to read a book that is over 1,000 pages, and they recommend maybe picking up a mass market paperback that is pretty big. However, I have had a look through my shelves and I do not own a single book that is over 1,000 pages right now. So I cannot do this challenge unless I go out and buy or borrow a book that is over 1,000 pages. And there's nothing right now that is striking me as something I really want to read that is that long. So what I've decided to do for this challenge is just to read over 1,000 pages during the course of the readathon. And I'm going to say that if I read 1,000 pages from various books, it completely counts for this challenge because you can double up on challenges anyway. So I'm thinking if I get through even half of what I've just shown you, I'll probably be well over 1,000 pages anyway. So I will give you a total when I do a wrap up of this readathon, and I'm not certain yet whether I'm going to vlog the readathon, whether I'm going to break it into little bits, just do a wrap up at the end. Let me know in the comments what you guys would like to see, but I'm so excited about this. I'm definitely looking forward to getting into it. As I say, the challenges have me super excited because they're a bit difficult, but they're all challenges that I know I can fulfill with my TBR. So I hope I can do it. I hope at least I get progress on some of these. And I'd love to see if you guys can join in. Let me know your TBRs. There is a Twitter, which is called @the1readathon, I believe, so I'll link that as well below. And I'm assuming they'll be doing sprints and things there too, so go and check out all the hosts and let me know if you're going to be joining in. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.